All right, we've got a wing mocked up. A number of things that I've done here. Trailing edge, I'm building from plans, so I had to build the trailing edge on my own here. So I took it. First thing I did was cut the notches. I had it all laid up. I knew exactly 1 foot for each rib, notched it out at the 1 foot mark. Then for the aileron, you've got to cut a little groove in there. That's for the lattice work to go in. I cut that next. And then I've got it in an angle of 17.5 degrees. And that seems to work out pretty darn good with the angle of the ribs. So that was building the trailing edge. If I was going to do it again, well, on the next wing, what I'm going to do, instead of getting pieces, and they talk about pieces that come in the kit, I'm going to get one long one that spans the entire distance, and then I'll machine it from one solid piece. What I've done here is I've left a little gap there. This rib I cut, this whole rib gets chucked away there on the ends, but you need a 1/8 gap there for a piece of plywood that's going to be on the inboard side of the flap. So I left a gap there, came down to the 6th rib, cut it flush with that. Then there's another gap, and then I started putting the ribs in there again. On the last one, there's a gap again, and then that final one will just get cut right there, just for that end piece. On there, and there's plywood that goes on the outside and everything like that. Starting back down at this end, when you follow the instructions, 13 feet down, I put in a piece of angle iron. You can put in whatever you want, wood block or whatever, to block that off so that it's square with the table. I also leveled the table and squared it so it's perfectly flat and square and level. And I stuck that on there and took all my measurements off of that piece of angle iron. Now I'm getting old and blind, so what I did is came down and I'm marking it with Sharpie so that I can see it nice and easily. I don't have to search for where the spar goes, where the ribs go. Marked each thing on here with a Sharpie so that when I'm gluing it together, I'll easily see exactly where the mark is. And when you're gluing it, you're kind of in a hurry because you don't want the glue to set up. So I want to be able to put them exactly where they're supposed to be, clamp them into place without having to go and line up tiny little pencil lines. With the Sharpie lines, I can see right off the bat exactly where it's going to go. Boom, glue it. Boom, glue it. Boom, glue it. So that's what I did. The rear spar fits right in there. I've got it marked as well. So now all we're waiting for is mix up some glue and start gluing that baby together. Before I do that, I'm going to lay plastic again over this sheet so that it doesn't get all stuck with glue. So that's the dry mock-up of the wing. Pretty happy with it. Yeah, I was contemplating that rear spar, or the rear trailing edge for a while there. And once I started doing it, putting it through the table saw, I cut all of it on the table saw. It actually went really well. You're supposed to use northern pine for that. I didn't have any northern pine, so I just used some fir. There, fir is slightly heavier, but honestly, that whole chunk probably weighs a pound. I don't even know if it weighs that. So, gaining a few ounces and gaining strength. But yeah, there we go. For the next video, I will hopefully have it all glued up. Again, if you're watching these and you're building from scratch, we're gluing up the entire wing. This work that you see in behind here that keeps all of the ribs, gives them support. Once you get that lattice glued on there, that's going to make that nice and stiff. Then the lattice comes down for the aileron. On the flap side of things, you don't have the lattice on the back. You go with another method. I think that's just one sheet of 1/32, but I'll find out about that. And that will keep everything stiff. We glue up everything, put the lattice in, then we cut all the ribs for the aileron and cut all the ribs for the flap, and that is how you create them. So you build the wing first, we'll put the spars and everything in there, and then cut it out so that it is complete square unit, glued and straight and level and square. Then you cut them all out and you have yourself a flap and you have yourself an aileron. When I first started building, I was going through stuff and I didn't know exactly how that was going to turn out, but that's what you do. Build the wing first, then cut out for the flap and the aileron, so you have that square unit completely done, then cut it out so it's a complete unit and nice and level and square. Overall, everything looks actually pretty darn good. I am happy with the progress so far. All right. All right, I got it glued up. I have to put in a block every now and then just to keep it absolutely every rib is straight up and down, perpendicular and level. So I've got all that done up, except of course this rib, which follows the dihedral. So there's that little bit cut away on the top, and that's level with that. But she's all glued up and in place. Everything's on the mark. Everything's perpendicular. So that is the wing. We'll get that dry and then we'll see what happens.